Hi there, Mark here again. Welcome to my build guide of the TT02D chassis kit, which is the DriftSpec version of the TT02. We'll get straight into it. Step 1 and 2 are discussing the different options that you get for the wheelbase and the width of the chassis. You can't adjust the ground clearance on the TT02D, so forget that bit. It says you need to look at your body. So I'm building the Skyline GTR R33, which says wheelbase of 257, which is the standard wheelbase. So we'll be building the standard wheelbase, and it says if it doesn't mention any other settings on the body kit instructions, then assume that it's standard. So it's the standard width and the standard length. So that's that bit out of the way. We'll go straight on to steps 2 here and 3. That's just charging the battery, obviously, so we won't worry about that. If we look at on the left hand side, this will tell us the parts that we need for the steps on the right. It says here parts bag A, so we're going to have to open parts bag A, and what I'm going to do in this section, part 1 of the build guide, is to just finish all the parts in parts bag A. So I'll get that open now and we'll get on with it. So step 3 is building up the spur gear assembly. So the first thing we need to do is get the parts ready. Make sure you match up the right size bearings. There are lots of different size bearings with this kit, just slightly different, so make sure you've got the right ones. Just match them up with the diagram. You need MA7, which is the small 2x10 pin. You need GB2 and GB3. They're not on a tree like the other parts, not like this. They come in a bag with the differential gears, and they're just loose in the bag, so that's where you'll find those parts. The GB3 is the spur gear stopper, which is this thing, if you can see that, and you'll see as we put it together. And then you need one of these C5s, which is the shaft with a cup on the end. So the first thing we do, I've put a bit of grease on there. We push on the first BB2 like that. You get your GB3, it says with a bit of grease on, which I've done, which is your stopper. Then you need to push your pin through the hole, and it does line up with kind of a little moulding in there on the stopper. And then we need this 70th spur gear, and make sure you get it the right way around. There's a cutout that goes over that pin, so make sure that goes on there, pushes right the way in like so. Then put your other bearing on, Mark, like that, and then the GB2, and that's how easy part 3 is. But it is easy to go wrong. Make sure you get the right bearings and make sure it's pushed all the way in, and that's completely covering the pin. Okay, step 4 is the prop shaft. So again, we've got the other C5. We've got to put the 2 bearings on, the BB2s, which are 1150s, and then GB2, which is your bevel gear. And then we need to put that onto the prop shaft itself, or propeller shaft, just a case of sliding those ends on. You can't go wrong with that. And that's that assembly finished. Straight on to step 5. On step 5, the first thing we need to do is put in this part D15, which is this part here, which goes in the gap, you can see, between those like cup shapes. It fits, it doesn't matter which way around it goes in. So that's that done. Then we need to get the shaft assembly and drop it into place, making sure that the bearings go into the little recesses that are provided. So there's the back ones in, if you can see that. The front ones are in place. Then we need part D2, which is just the little cap that goes over the second bearing there and holds that into place, and attached with two 3mm self-tapping screws. And all you need to do then is just apply some grease to the gears, as you can see there, and that's step 5 done. Step 6 is the differential gears. Now we've got to make 2 of these, so obviously I'll just show you making the one, and then there's a note here about using the anti-wear grease that you do get in parts bag A. So this is really good grease, is this. So I usually use my own grease, big tub of liquid moly grease that I've got, but in this case, because I've got the anti-wear grease and I know it's really good stuff, I shall be using that. So now we need to cut out the parts from these little trees. I'll just get on with that back in a sec. Okay, so I've just made up the first one, so I've had a good practice at doing it. It wasn't very difficult at all. I did smother it with the AW grease inside, as it shows, and just putting the output shafts or drive cups on, you won't be able to see obviously on the video, but there is a lot of resistance in there now, so that's going to give you a really good limited slip diff feature. So that is really good. I'll just show you quickly what you need to do. Cut out all of your bevel gears. Make sure there's no plastic sticking out where they used to connect. Make sure you've got that all smooth. So I'll just show you how it all goes together. Get your star shaped shaft, which is this cross thing. Get your gears, the small bevels, put them on like so, facing inwards like that. Make sure you put the AW grease on these shafts before you put the diffs on, sorry, the bevel gears on. So it's like so. Get the case, which is GB1. Get the bigger of the bevel gears, which is a G2, and that just drops in like so. You can see that. Then the assembly you've got there, the ends of the star shaft go into those 4 slots like that. You can see it on the camera. Again, grease it with the AW grease. Put your other bevel gear on the top, your other G2. Grease all that up. Then you've got the large GB4, which is your ring gear. Make sure that the 4 lugs there go into those 4 slots like so, and then you've got 4 of these tiny MA5s which go in like that. They're 2x8mm self tappers, and screw 4 of those into place, and you end up with this. So step 7 is attaching the front differential gear. So again, make sure you've got the webbing on the chassis on the end that you're working on, because this is the front, and you need your differential that you've assembled, and you need to make sure that you put it in the right way around. So as you look at the car from the front, the gear needs to be on the right hand side like so. You need 2 BB1s, which are the biggest ball bearings, the 1280s. They just fit on each side of your differential case. They snap on nicely, and then that goes in place like so. Make sure you put a nice load of grease onto the teeth there. Then you get part A4, and that's going to go and hold all this together So that's going to go on like so. Okay, and then you've got 4 your 10mm screws to put in the 4 holes there, which I shall just do now. Step 8 is attaching the front upper arms, which are these things here, which are B13s, as you can see on the diagram. What you do need to do is fit into each end. As you can see there, it says snap, these P7s. You get 4 of these, like little balls with a hole in. They come in the bag with the servo saver, if you're not sure where they are, so that's where you'll find them. It does say snap. If you hold with the slot facing upwards and just push it in, yeah, it did make a bit of a noise. It's a loose fit when it's in there, I will say, but yeah, so you need to do that to both of those. And it also shows putting a bit of grease onto these. If I was running this off-road, I wouldn't bother with the grease, but since I'm going to run it on-road initially, I might look at taking it off-road later, but at first, so we'll put a little bit of grease on that. You need A2, which is going to hold the back of these arms, like so. And that just goes on top of that differential cover. It slots on. It's quite easy to fit that. We'll put the 2 of your 3x10 screws that you need into that. And to grease these up, make sure you look at the diagram and put them the right way around. So the lug there is facing towards the rear of the car, like so. Same with the other one. Oh, he says wrong way around. There you go. Easy to make a mistake, so make sure the lug's pointing backwards, and then we attach this part, which is A7, your shock tower, or shock stays, or sometimes call them. Again, make sure you've got these lugs pointing towards the front and the flat part towards the back, and that's going to mount on there like so, and it's holding the top arms. So I'll just put those 2 screws in there and 2 screws into the front there and show you that in a sec. So the front should look something like this when you're finished, with the screws in there and there, and the top arms are moving freely. Step 9 is very similar to step 7, but for the rear of the car, so turn the car around, and sorry, the chassis around I should say, we're going to get the other differential. Again, use your larger of the ball bearings, your BB1s, the 1280s, snap those onto each side, and again be careful of which way around this goes. It goes like so. As you look at it from the back this time, again facing to the right hand side of the chassis, and then we're going to attach your A2 in exactly the same way as the front, so it just slots on there, and the 4 screws go in the 4 holes. So the 4 screws are in now. I forgot to mention, don't forget to apply some grease to that large differential gear, the ring gear on there, before you put the cover on, obviously. Step 10 now is attaching the rear upper arms, which are B17. You can see here, copy the orientation as shown on the diagram, so you can see this angle here points towards the back, because this is the back of the car now. You need your 4 screws, your 10mm screws. You need the same as the front now, an A7 there, and is this an A2? Yes, it's an A2. So these hold the upper arms. Again, this fits, the A2 fits nicely onto those 2 protruding lugs there, like so. Just 2 screws in there, fit your arms in with a bit of grease this way around, and then another 2 screws through here, and then that'll be holding the arms in place. So I'll just get those screws in now. So this is what the rear should look like when you finish putting the screws in there and onto there, and that's the orientation of the upper arms. So straight on to step 11, which is simply attaching the motor mount to the motor. So get your lovely Sport Tune motor and the motor mount, which is D9, which has got the pinion teeth numbers clearly marked on it. You might be able to see there. You'll certainly be able to see on yours anyway. We need the motor plate, which is an MA9, which is like a fibre or cardboard kind of spacer or plate. And you need 2 of the machine screws. Make sure they're the machine screws that you've got, which are MA4s and not the self tappers. What we need to do is put these screws in the holes for 22 teeth, which is the pinion. 22 teeth. So we've got 25, 24, 23, 22 there. And then opposite that, which looks like that. We need to put your motor plate on. Okay, that's the easiest way to do it, I find. And then offer the motor up and line it up with the mounting holes. Okay, and then we just nip that up with the screwdriver. On to the next step. So step 12 is attaching the motor to the chassis. First thing we need to do is to get our 22 tooth pinion gear, put the grub screw in the hole and attach that to the motor. So we've got the spindle, find the flat of the spindle, and then the grub screw mounts onto the flat. So what I like to do is fit it loosely so that this can move, and then I'm going to fit it and then make sure that the pinion is in the centre of the spur gear. So fit the heat sink, and that's this nice blue thing here. I'll just clip on. So we fit that on, and then we fit the motor mounts into the slot there with the 2 holes you can probably just about see. Like so. What you need to do now is use 2 of your 10mm screws to screw into that mount from underneath the chassis. As you can see, the 2 screws there go into these 2 holes. So as I said, what I like to do now is to make sure the pinion's in the right place. Inserting my Allen key, make sure it's central to the spur gear, and give it a good nip up. Okay, what I need to do now is put a load of grease on that, which I shall do in a while. And we then have to fit the top cover, which is a D3. So this is your D3. So what I should do is just fit that over, get it the right way around, like so, and screw in the 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, I think it is. Okay, so I'll just get some grease on there and fit the screws. So that's the cover D3 fitted, and just to be clear, the screws that you need are here, 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 and here. And the final part of step 12 is to fit these posts, which are parts B2. They slot in these holes. They only go the one way round. That's for holding the battery strap. So they should look something like this, and you just fix them with the 2 screws underneath. Step 13 is attaching the rear lower arms. So as you can see in the diagram, turn your chassis upside down. You need parts B1. It shows you how to line them up here. So what you need is the longer of these 2 lugs, there and there, facing the chassis, like so. You need part A9. This is going to hold it all on. So what we need to do is put that one on there into the hole. Put some grease on these first if you prefer greasing them up. That one goes in that hole there, and then simply with grease on these 2 lugs, simply slide that on, and then you need 1 10x3 screw, goes in that hole like so. In step 14 we're going to be attaching the rear bumper. Simply a case of these 2 countersunk screws, your MA3s, 10mm, 2 of the longer 15mm self tappers, 3mm screws. Just follow the orientation again. Simply we're going to go into these 2 screw holes here, one there and one there, and the 2 in the end. The actual bumper goes over the screw you've already put in. You can see the hole there. So just put the countersunks in. The 15mm self tappers. And you should look something like that. On step 15 we're going to attach the front lower arms again, so you need to turn your chassis upside down. Okay, like it shows. We're going to need the 2 B14s, which are the arms, but first you've got to put in those weird ball clips, which are the P7s, and again you need to just push 1 in each of these holes. You hear the snap there? We'll just see that. Do the other one. It shows the orientation here, you probably just see that. You put your arms like so that the lugs there are pointing towards the front. So if we just get that, so that's going to go that way around into the hole in the chassis. Grease these up first again, the lug pointed to the front, put in the other hole, some grease onto these. Same as the back, we've got A9 that just slots over, and your 1 screw, your 10mm screw, goes in that hole there, and that's those attached. And then simply go straight to 16, which is putting the front bumper on. And I won't show that because we've already shown this exactly the same as step 14. So on completion of step 16 we turn over the page in the manual and see that step 17 and parts bag B needs to be opened. So we'll save that for next time. Here we are so far at the end of parts bag A. As you can see, we've got the top and bottom wishbones or A-arms mounted front and rear, the motor, the heat sinks mounted, we've got the prop shaft fitted, and it all seems to be turning okay. So we'll call it a day here. Hopefully you'll join me on part 2 where we'll use parts bag B, and thanks for following along. Hope to see you on the next one. Bye.